afternoon, good evening, YouTube. This is Ty, Metalhead Weatherman. Hopefully, you guys have had a good weekend so far. Well, there's a little bit to talk about here today. A few new developments. Julia is making its headlines, so we're just gonna go over a little bit of everything here. So, pretty obvious what's going on here. Julia made landfall early this morning. I'm not entirely sure of the timeline in which it made landfall, but it made landfall as an 85-mile-per-hour hurricane, and it's forecast to remain a tropical storm as it's going through Nicaragua right now. We'll go ahead and look at the forecast cone real quick, briefly touch on this because I can't really get too much information from this region, unfortunately, right now. I have no real idea of what the damage is like, but I know that it's moved there relatively quickly, so that might mitigate some of the flood threat, but I still think a lot of flooding could be occurring here, as well as landslides and mudslides. This storm also is expected to impact El Salvador and parts of Guatemala as it moves out further into the Pacific side of Mexico and Central America, or Central America, so to speak. It may affect some parts of Mexico, but I do think by that point it will be a remnant low and a shadow of its former self. But we'll just have to see how things play out with that. Still a few tropical storm force warnings in Nicaragua and Salvador and El Salvador. Guatemala has a tropical storm watch, which they may end up possibly canceling depending on how strong the storm remains over the next day or so. But now we're going to go and talk about what's going on over here because look what we have here. It's a marginal risk. This is for Tuesday of this week. So that big storm system with that has that cold front associated with it. There's going to be a collision of warm and cold air masses, and there are some parameters available to cause some severe weather. It's a very big marginal risk area. I do think that there is a slight potential that this could go up to a slight risk, no pun intended, if there was one even there to begin with. But looks like the main threat I'm concerned with, if any here, will probably be a damaging wind, maybe a hail threat, but it's that time of year, so this isn't really surprising. We'll go more into detail with this threat tomorrow. We'll take a quick look at what the storm system might look like, and then really just kind of cover the next 10 days real quick. And then we'll just go ahead and look at the temperatures too. Oops, hit the wrong button. But here we are going through Monday. Things stay relatively quiet, and then our piece of energy comes in on Tuesday. And you can see right here, it's a little bit of remnant energy, a little bit of remnant energy right here come Wednesday, but it's not very organized. There could be a little bit of a severe weather threat that's further to the east, I would say, but I don't really see a super organized threat. Maybe Thursday this could. Oh, great! I hit the sounding here. This doesn't really look impressive anyway from the looks of it. So it's kind of pointless that ended up being over there. But you can see this big piece of energy coming through. It's mainly going to be a big deal more so in Canada than anything else. And then you can almost see a really weird characteristic take shape here. Might be two low pressure centers right around here. And they'll be swirling about each other. Almost like the Fujiwara effect with hurricanes, which is something I find pretty interesting. But this mainly is going to cause more inclement weather around the northern half of the country. Actually, it's going to really just be north of the border. But here is where things get interesting, is towards the second half of the month, just after the midway point here. You can see this tiny little piece of energy right here, and then this piece of energy right here. There's two things that we look for here, and one of those is a negatively tilted trough, which we aren't getting just yet. But then we're also getting a secondary piece energy, and we're looking for something called phasing. These two can travel. If these two can get close together, you can get a much bigger storm out of this. But I don't really see this scenario playing out here. This does try to make a push towards a negative tilt late to the start of next week, but so right now I don't really see too much coming out of the storm phasing, so to speak. And then right behind that, we'll have to watch for yet another storm system. Hard to hash out the details as to what happens with this here, but I'm mainly going to be concerned about the Ohio Valley for any potential severe weather with this. And then we'll be getting into this guy probably later this week. So plenty of stuff going on here. Go ahead and take a look at the height anomaly here. This kind of gives an idea of what kind of air masses we're dealing with. So you can clearly see that there is a big Arctic blast coming our way, and it's going to kick this ridge that's over the southeast out of the way really fast. Not like it was a super strong ridge to begin with anyway. So you can see also this kind of represents the dip in the jet stream that we have, and this is going to pretty much be our storm track as well. So right around here it's going to be our battle zones for severe weather. Tuesday it looks like it's going to be here. Wednesday it's going to be here, and it's hard to say what'll happen Thursday. Hash those details out when we get there. But this is a classic telltale sign of a positive PNA here. Oops. There we go. Where we're warm in the west and cold to the east. And we'll move this along. Eventually this positive PNA starts to dissolve. Really, again? Jeez. Just have no room on this computer desk anymore. But you can see this positive PNA begins to dissolve, and really everybody's dealing with a slightly cooler or cold air mass for right now. Could result in some quieter weather over the next few days, but then here comes a push of warm air developing in two different areas, which could result in severe weather around the central plains, maybe even some around the south and east, and we'll have to see how things play out here. This is getting towards 1 week from now, so that's something to watch. And then we'll be back in a flip-flop type pattern by the middle of next week from the looks of it. And then we'll have another cold push trying to make its way from west to east, and then another big storm system behind that. Business is picking up, folks, so if I didn't say it in the last video, definitely this video, get the jackets and sweaters ready, because if you ain't careful, you're going to be blindsided. So let's go ahead and actually look at the temperatures here on the Euro. So Monday looks like a relatively, daggone it. Monday looks like a relatively warmer day, and then once we get towards Tuesday, we can see a big push. We can see the big push of cold air coming in. And each morning you can notice it'll get relatively colder, and that colder air will be pushing further to the south and east. Starting to see 30s and 20s even starting to creep their way into the Rockies here, especially towards the higher elevations. Maybe even some freeze warnings possible there. So we go in towards the end of the week. We're starting to see some lower 40s into part of Georgia now even. And up in the Ohio Valley, we're dealing with some 40s and even some 30s here. But once we get into next week, take a look at what the temperatures really start to do in the morning. Especially once we start looking back towards areas like Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, we're starting to see a handful of teens coming in here and there. Keep in mind though, this is the 12Z, 18Z Euro run should be coming soon, although it'll only be 90 hours. But we'll have to take a look and see how much further these cold blasts progress here throughout the next 10 days. But I think the latter half of October is definitely looking like it's going to be below average for a lot of people now, which is crazy because we've flip-flopped basically from what we had before, where a lot of the country was expected to be above average. See, this is what I tell you about these long-range forecasts. You have to take them with a grain of salt, because one little detail can change and then the whole forecast is turned on its head. But let's get to the final bit here, where we're actually looking at what the radar could look like over the next 10 days. Scroll down, make sure we see the whole country here, including Florida. Don't want to forget you guys. But this is what we have going on. We're gonna have several storm systems coming through. We pretty much already have the basic synopsis here. Here's our late evening. Here's our late Tuesday evening severe weather threat, mainly concerned about Minnesota, Minneapolis included in that. Iowa, maybe towards northern Iowa. We're looking at you. Southern Iowa becomes a maybe an overnight threat even. Looks like a line of storms tries to form through Missouri here, but by the overnight the threat level has gone down considerably. Then Wednesday night we're looking towards maybe some inclement weather in the southeast, maybe the Ohio Valley as well. But I do think this threat is going to be a lot more marginal than Tuesday's threat even. So we'll go into Thursday, late Wednesday night, Thursday morning, and we'll we'll see that there is a little bit of weather around the southeast, but this clears out pretty quick. Then here comes the Arctic blast right behind it for the northeast and the Ohio Valley. We'll go in the next week, and then we'll start to see that next storm system coming in about almost exactly 7 days from now. This might lead to a much bigger severe weather threat come Sunday, I think. Be interesting to see how things progress here, but you can see almost a little bit of emphasis towards a southern plains severe weather threat, which is really interesting. Not out of season for this time of year, given the fact that we have the warm and cold air collision going on. And then, interestingly enough, I do think it stays further to the north, but a little bit of a winter storm pops up here in Canada and tries to make a push towards maybe the UP, maybe some of the northern tier of the Great Lakes, but I do think it stays north of the border again. So we'll watch and see what that does, because it could easily push south with these models. And even then, these models aren't 100% right at the top. And that's why we're always updating them and constantly watching. And then towards the end of this picture here, that's when we'll start to see maybe some wraparound snow for the UP here in northern parts of Wisconsin and Minnesota. And then at the very end of our model run, we can see our next big storm system coming in from Alaska. But that's pretty much all I got for this video. We'll go over the severe weather threat more in detail tomorrow, especially if it goes up to a slight risk. Also, keep an eye out for an upcoming November outlook. We'll also cover the second half of October. Just see what we're expecting there. And yeah, that's going to really be it. Also, how'd you like that intro theme? Still a work in progress, but hopefully you guys like it. But yeah, if you liked what I did in this video at all, even, just definitely give me a like, comment. Definitely share the channel, sub to it as well if you haven't already. We cover stuff like this all the time, and we're going to be here for as long as we're needed. But I also enjoy doing this, so I'll probably just do it anyway. Here I am rambling though. Not going to waste too much more time. This has been Ty Metalhead Weatherman. I'm signing off. I'll see you guys in the next video.